As state lawmakers crafted this new school safety and gun bill this week in Tallahassee, gun rights advocates found themselves largely on the defense, lobbying state lawmakers against trying to restrict access to weapons.
Bob Harvey is president of the South Florida Gun School. He is a former Marine Corps marksmanship instructor and involved with gun rights groups, including the National Rifle Association and Florida Carry as well. So glad to have you with us today for what is an invaluable perspective. And can we start with the ban that everybody is calling for on assault-style weapons? And I think for people who are not in the gun and weapon world, there is so much confusion on what that means, looking at in mass shootings the weapon that is used and why a ban can't happen. Why is that?
Well, thanks for having me back on. It's always great to be here. The assault weapons bans is a misnomer. We've had a ban on assault weapons since the 1930s. What they're talking about now are AR-15 style. In some instances, in other instances, it is all semi-automatic firearms. One of the problems that we have when we have these discussions is people aren't knowledgeable in what they're asking for.
That was my question. Teach people what that means. Why a gun that shoots off so many rounds and potentially kills so many people so easily is still available.
The gun by itself does not shoot so many rounds. There had to be a human being behind it. And we've tried this assault weapons.
Excuse me, Bob. The magazines that Nicholas Cruz took into that school were 30 bullet magazines. And he left 5 or 6 of these magazines with Nazi regalia engraved on them. These are large-scale magazines, 30 bullets per magazine. So he fired, we are told, well over 100 bullets inside that school in 6 minutes.
You could do the same thing with a pistol. The exact same thing, no different. This is the problem. People don't understand. If you come out to the range, I'll be happy to show you anytime you'd like to come out. I can do the same thing, discharge that many rounds out of a handgun that most police officers carry. We tried a ban in a high-cap magazine ban for 10 years. It had zero effect on the crime rate. Zero. Until we start addressing the actual problem.
What is the actual problem in your view?
I get so tired of coming on shows and trying to defend something that's indefensible. A firearm set on the table does nothing. We have a situation where we have a mentally ill person. We knew that he was mentally ill. The government failed drastically the people. Everything from the school system to the local sheriff's department to the actual armed police officer on the spot.
Yeah, and the FBI as well.
So you bring up a point that we hear very often. But the fact remains that to own a gun and to use a gun, there is very little licensing required, as is, we had talked about a box truck that kills a lot of people. Driver's license, there's a driver's license, there's proficiency exams. And is that a fair metaphor?
Not really.
Tell me.
We have a Second Amendment right here in this country that's a little bit different than a driver's license. They didn't put a driver's license in the Constitution. Of course, they didn't have driving back then. But you could say the same thing about the First, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh Amendment. Here's the reality.
Which have exceptions.
Here's the reality. Everyone is looking to the government to make a quick fix for this. Always follow the money. And when I say follow the money, look what's happening in Tallahassee right now. The one thing I will give the gun control group, they can en masse drop people on the ground quickly. There's no way.
But all these kids, these hundreds of students from Stoneman Douglas High, they weren't recruited by any group at all. They were recruited by their pain and anger over having seen 17 of their classmates, their teachers killed.
I deny that, Michael.
Why is that, Bob?
Who funded it?
When you
they went to Tallahassee. Who funded it?
Well, some of the money, came from their parents. Some of the money came from George Clooney and his wife. Some came from people, in Hollywood. Jeffrey Katzenberg, some others. What's wrong with that?
Over half of it came from Bloomberg's Mothers Against Gun Violence.
Would that be then similar to saying that if you follow the money, so many of the representatives who are funded or at least assisted by the National Rifle Association is that the same fair comparison?
I would say no, and I'll tell you why. If you look at dollars that go into DC and into Tallahassee, the NRA has a very minor amount of money all in.
Yeah, but
Very
Marion Hammer for 40 years, who runs the NRA in Florida, has been a huge influence on gun legislation, basically on any restrictions on gun legislation.
First off, you don't restrict guns, you restrict people. And I'll
right.
try to take in
Okay, I'm told, I'm very sorry, I raised the subject. You're not going to be able to finish it because we're out of time, but Bob Harvey, thank you for coming in. We really always appreciate your point of view and glad to have you.
Great
Thanks.
to have you.